Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Full Throttle Finance, a financial literacy podcast that's geared towards taking complex financial topics and making them into fun, relatable discussions. My name is Felicia, and I am your CEO at CleanBee Consulting, and with me is Allison, who is our senior bookkeeper. Together, we focus on revving up the financial foundations for athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders in business. Regardless if you are operating from an established program already or if you are just getting started, we're here to help you make small shifts that drive better financial performance.
All right. So last week we talked about Netflix's Drive to Survive, the show that introduced a massive new audience to Formula One. This newfound fandom created a large following in the United States and boosted sponsorships and merch sales. We compared it to Pressure to Rise, Moto America's behind-the-scenes series. It's on YouTube. Since we talked about Formula One last week, we thought it might be interesting and fun to bring finances back into the picture and talk about the concept of cost caps. Specifically, we want to discuss what these cost caps mean for top-tier motorsport teams and then translate those lessons into practical advice for smaller organizations and individuals working on tighter budgets. So Felicia, I wanted to give a little background for our listeners that might not be as deeply immersed in Formula One as maybe we are. So the sport introduced financial regulations known as a cost cap. Essentially, teams have set a budget ceiling they cannot exceed. The idea is to level the playing field. Big budget teams can't simply outspend everyone, and smaller teams can get more of a competitive edge.
Yep, you're totally right, Allison. These cost caps, they amount to hundreds of millions of dollars, which is a massive budget by the everyday standard. But in the ultra expensive, luxurious world of F1, it actually does represent genuine constraint, despite the large numbers that you see on paper. Teams are forced to innovate in areas like aerodynamics, engine performance, and manufacturing efficiency while working under tighter financial restrictions. And it's a delicate balance between current conditions and future research and development. So things like carefully curated budgets have to be managed rigorously in order to ensure that costs like travel and labor and logistics don't eat up all of the money. Each team faces basically the same question, like how do we get faster than our competitors while we're dealing with this limited budget?
Yeah, and now I know what you're thinking. How do F1 multi-million-dollar cost caps have anything to do with my small business or my personal budget? Believe it or not, though, there are some seriously relevant lessons to be learned. We always like to shift the mindset. So, Felicia, do you want to talk about some of the applications that a smaller budget team could benefit from implementing that are similar to teams with multi-million-dollar budgets?
Yeah, Allison, I got a few. So for starters, prioritize your spending. In F1, teams have to decide what areas are going to yield the best performance gains. Is it more beneficial to invest in wind tunnel testing or new software? Should we upgrade to higher quality manufacturing equipment, or do we need to allocate more funds to marketing? Do we invest in the current program, or do we invest in future research and development for next season? The logic remains the same across all these different scenarios. Focus the resources where they're going to have the greatest impact for the program. Secondly, create innovation through constraints. When you can't just throw money at every single problem that comes up, that means you are going to have to get more creative. F1 teams are known for engineering breakthroughs precisely because they can't just buy their way out of every single issue that comes up with the cost cap that's in play. They can probably throw money at a lot of the things, but really, they do have to get very creative with their innovations and how they problem solve. And so the same concept applies to small budgets. Creativity has to thrive because there is the necessity to solve problems without having, quote unquote, extra cash on hand. Next one, long-term efficiency. Cost caps force race teams to refine their development processes, reducing waste, optimizing production time, ensuring each component is actually worth the expense that it brings to the program. And on a smaller scale with small teams and small budgets, anything from that's just as simple as like automating repetitive tasks to negotiating bulk discounts for parts that you need for your season, those can reduce your overhead costs. And over time, these efficiency tweaks that you make to your program, they really do add up to big savings when you look at the big picture of your program for the full year. Another one is data-driven decisions. Every single F1 dollar is spent only after a rigorous data analysis is performed. Everything from operations to admin is scrutinized with a very careful attention to detail by professionals. And, for small businesses or for even your own personal finances, the principle is still the same. Gather all of your revenue sources, gather all of your spending sources, and then analyze them carefully before you decide to allocate your funds when you have a very small budget to work with or a limited budget to work with. Maybe even add hiring a professional to work with as a second set of eyes, wink, wink. But don't start spending your program money right away until you have a clear plan set forth on how you're going to achieve your goals this season.
Completely
And
agree.
lastly is team alignment and clear goals. F1 teams, and I mean everyone from admin back in home office to the crew that's in the paddock at the race, and even the drivers in the car, like everyone in the entire program. Everyone has to agree on the performance goals. Otherwise, spending decisions become muddled. And similarly, for smaller organizations, when everyone knows what the key objectives are, it's easier to say no to expenditures that don't align with the core priorities of the program. There's this consistent realignment that happens when the goals are set and when the goals are clear and the path to get there is thoughtfully outlined.
Which all of those are such great points. Since we talked about Netflix's series Drive to Survive last week, we wanted to kind of tie these two together now. The series showcases the dramas, the triumphs, the behind the scenes look at what it's like to be an F1 driver or someone who works with the F1 teams. Alongside Pressure to Rise, where we see more relatable and smaller race organizations or athletes, grappling with the high stakes environments. Both these series offer that like bird's eye view of the good and the bad, revealing how pressure shapes real decision making and growth. Resilience under constraint is the name of the game. When you're up against strict cost caps in F1 or limited resources in everyday life, adaptability is key. Drive to Survive spotlights how teams pivot strategies on tight budgets, much like Pressure to Rises, where we see the smaller programs stay nimble in the face of scarcity.
That's right, Allison. By showcasing behind the scenes tensions like missed opportunities, conflicts, big wins, these docu-series remind us that programs often thrive under constraints. Limited budgets or intense timelines force teams and individuals to capitalize on every single resource and skill set that they have at their fingertips. Managing things like emotions and establishing a good team dynamic is essential in these circumstances. In both F1's high octane world and the stories that are featured in Pressure to Rise, it's not just about money. Strong communication, morale boosting leadership, and genuine collaboration can literally make or break performance for the entire team when the stakes are sky high. And ultimately, the raw and unfiltered drama that these shows capture helps us appreciate how real success often hinges on resilience and creativity and teamwork, regardless of what your budget size is, right? Those are still the same three common core principles. And that is why it is super, super, super important to hire the right people for your program. You want the right tool for the right job. So we always want to connect the dots a little bit for our listeners here at Full Throttle Finance. So here are a couple of practical tips that you can use and apply in your own program for success. The first one is going to be to decide on a concrete spending limit for your program. Having a strict upper boundary that forces you to weigh every expenditure more carefully. The second, track your key metrics, revenues, expenses, targets, marketing ROI, or even your own personal finance goals. Adjust your budget allocations based on the real world results, not just what your assumptions are. And third, don't hesitate to refine and adjust. F1 teams are constantly refining their car designs. You can do the same with your own program strategies. Pivot quickly if the data suggests that there's a better direction because you're tracking your key metrics in number 2.
Yeah.
If this episode has resonated with you, then we highly encourage you to look at enrolling in our Revving Up for Financial Success course. We actually discuss a lot of these very same topics, but in a lot more detail all throughout the course itself. We lay the educational foundation and provide you with the tools that you need to budget your program like a pro. There's over 1 hour of video consulting content included in the course, and it is in a straightforward, move at your own pace format. It includes downloadable tools, downloadable cheat sheets that you can take away and use within your own program. You get lifetime access to the course. All future updates and course editions are included as laws might change here in the United States. And it is all for the lovely price of just a one-time fee of $125. It's really a no-brainer if you're running a race program and you want to have that next step up advantage over your competitors that you're competing against.
Yeah, and you nailed it. And there you have it. Our deep dive into how Formula One cost caps give us valuable insight in managing smaller budgets, plus a look at how Netflix's Drive to Survive reflects those same principles of resilience and adaptability under financial and emotional constraints. We appreciate you tuning in and taking the steps to strengthen your financial foundations. If you found today's insights valuable or fun, be sure to join us again next week. If you're interested in learning more about the services we provide to clients, you can visit our website at cleanbeeconsulting.com. That is CLEANBEE consulting.com. Be sure to subscribe and join us next week as we continue to break down finances with a motorsport twist. See you next Friday.